It's good to have you with us today. We're following two major developments in a death investigation, unlike any that you've seen before. Kendrick Johnson walked into his high school gym in Valdosta, Georgia, back in January. The next thing anyone knew, this strong and healthy 17-year-old, a three-sport athlete, was dead. He was wedged somehow into a rolled-up gym mat, and the sheriff called it an accident. Kendrick's parents said that is crazy. And yesterday, they, along with CNN, persuaded a judge to release surveillance video and photographs and police files related to their son's alleged suffocation. That is one big development. The second comes 2 hours from now. That's when the top federal prosecutor in the region is going to hold a news conference where he may announce, and I repeat, he may announce, that the feds will launch their own investigation into what happened in that gym. My colleague Victor Blackwell has uncovered one incredible detail after another in this case, and he's going to join me live in a moment. But first, I want to get you up to speed on his latest reporting.
Months of protests, sit-ins, and marches have shaken the small South Georgia city of Valdosta. Demonstrators say they want answers in the death of 17-year-old Kendrick Johnson. And soon, a U.S. attorney will announce whether or not he wants answers too. In January, Kendrick was found dead at school. Investigators with the Lowndes County Sheriff's Office say Kendrick squeezed his 19-inch shoulders into the 14-1/2-inch center of this rolled gym mat. They say he got stuck upside down while reaching for this shoe. After an autopsy, a medical examiner with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation agreed. The official cause of Kendrick's death? Accidental positional asphyxia. Kendrick was suffocated by his own body weight.
We examined all the alternatives that were presented to us, and the only one that fit the physical evidence and the forensic evidence and the testimonial evidence that we received was this is an accident.
An accident we just didn't believe.
Kendrick's parents, Kenneth and Jacqueline Johnson, believe the story about the shoe is a cover-up.
When I went and viewed his body that Sunday, you can see something happened. You can tell he was beaten.
The Johnsons want the U.S. Department of Justice to launch a federal investigation.
If they don't come in, they only send a message to the world. You can kill as long as you can get away with it.
In June, the Johnsons exhumed Kendrick's body and hired Dr. Bill Anderson to conduct an independent autopsy. Anderson says he found evidence of bleeding under the skin near Johnson's right jaw.
We were able to diagnose the fact that there was indeed blunt force trauma to that area.
So he took blows to the neck?
He took at least one blow to the neck.
Just to be clear, you've used the word several times, but in your view, this is a homicide?
Yes.
Also, Dr. Anderson says Kendrick's organs were missing. Instead, he was stuffed with newspaper. The Georgia Secretary of State's office has launched an investigation into that. Questions about the Sheriff's Office investigation have made the Johnsons more suspicious, including why these shoes found yards from Kendrick's body were not collected as evidence, and how did someone's blood end up on this wall in the gym? CNN laid out these facts for former FBI Special Agent Harold Kopis.
I don't believe this was an accident. I think this young man met with foul play.
In September, a DOJ spokesperson said, "We do not see sufficient indication of a civil rights violation to authorize a civil rights investigation." However, behind this door, U.S. Attorney Michael Moore has continued to review the case and will soon announce his decision whether or not there will be a federal criminal investigation. In a statement to CNN in early October, Moore said, "This is about getting to the facts and the truth, and we want the Johnson family and the community of Valdosta to have confidence in the process." After 9 months, the Johnsons say they will not stop until they get an answer, no matter what the U.S. attorney decides.
How long are you willing to fight?
Till I die. If it take me till I die, I will fight till I die.
Victor Blackwell joins me live now. And Victor, I just want to get back to that newly released material that you and that family have really fought long and hard to see. What does it tell us, if anything, about any potential foul play?
Well, Ashley, we've been covering this story for 6 months, filed 20 open records requests, and only after this lawsuit filed by the Johnsons, joined by CNN as part of our open records request, did we get the surveillance video. I want to show you the first clip. If we can play the one with Kendrick in the hall. We blurred out the other students, but we see here that Kendrick is walking in the gym behind another student. Now, there's no timestamp on this. There's no date stamp, but it appears that he's wearing the same clothing that he was wearing inside the mat. Now, let's look at the video inside the gym. This video matches those 7 stills we were given several months ago that show Kendrick running along the bottom right of the screen. Now, you see in the foreground, there are 3 students playing basketball. This is time-stamped 1:09 p.m., which is just minutes before, according to the sheriff's office, Kendrick climbed into that mat. So we know that just minutes before, there were students who appear to casually be playing basketball. Let's also talk about the file very quickly, Ashley. We now know every person who was interviewed, every lead they followed, and we know that the sheriff's office focused in on just a couple of students, pulling their attendance records, pulling their class schedules, not doing that for the other students. And also they focused on another teenager who was not a student at Lowndes High School. So at least we know that they were focusing in their investigation there. So there's still a lot more, hundreds of pages and maybe 2,000 hours of surveillance. 48 hours around the death of Kendrick Johnson from 40 cameras in and around the gym. Interestingly enough, one more thing.
Yeah.
His attorneys, the attorneys do not expect that the moment Kendrick climbs in, with all these cameras and all the hours, the moment he goes in, that they do not expect will be on this surveillance.
Which is, of course, what would answer so many of these questions. But those kids playing basketball, do we even know if some of those records that were pulled pertain to the images that we just saw, that there's some connection between the kids who were in the gym, at least, on this new video to Kendrick Johnson?
Well, we know that the sheriff's office investigated students who were aware of where Kendrick was before he disappeared and those who found him, but specifically going after those 3 who were playing basketball, that yet we have not found. But it's quite possible they talked to them. But again, we've got 400 pages we're going through. We are still kind of sorting out what this new information offers.
And then also, just quickly, if you could, Victor, and I know that things are developing really moment by moment, but if the U.S. attorney this afternoon announces that there's not going to be a federal case, there's not going to be a further federal investigation, does this new evidence that you're looking at today and the pressure that's been put on those locals, does that mean the sheriff where you are may reconsider and reopen this case and look at it with a different lens?
I think it could be reopened, but not because of the pressure put on the sheriff, but the pressure placed on the coroner. The Johnsons filed a lawsuit to get the, to use the Latin term, mandamus nisi, and I apologize for the Latin, but it's we order unless. So they want the court to order the coroner to open an inquest unless he can prove why he shouldn't, to get a panel of people there in the community to decide whether this was a homicide or an accident. Right now, his death certificate says accident. If this jury of 6, after listening to testimony, looking at evidence, determines that Kendrick Johnson's death was indeed a homicide, it changes the death certificate, which is then forwarded to the district attorney, and that will then launch possibly another investigation. So more about the pressure on the coroner. He said this morning to our producer in Valdosta that he's going to make a decision about that inquest in the next day or so, with the emphasis on or so. So maybe over the weekend or maybe by Monday.
And, you know, it's astounding that it took, you know, the family and you and your producer 20 open records requests to try to get to some of this very detailed information. But excellent work, Victor, just terrific work, and keep us posted on what you find out as we await that 1 o'clock announcement. I want to bring in 2 very, very smart attorneys when it comes to cases like this. Danny Savalas and Mark O'Mara are defense attorneys and also CNN legal analysts. Mark, if I could begin with you, what difference would it make if the feds actually agreed to do a criminal investigation? How would it be different than what the sheriffs and those deputies have done?
Well, hopefully it's going to be much more complete, because the reality is that whatever happened in that investigation was not complete, and it certainly wasn't transparent. Should never have taken 6 months in a lawsuit to get the information available, at least to the family. The family had an absolute right to know what happened to their son. And I really think that Mr. Moore, I'm hoping that he's going to open the investigation, because at this point, with all of the focus on it, we're only going to be satisfied, the nation, is if we have a full, complete, and very transparent investigation. And Mr. Moore is in the best position to do that.
And Danny, it's not like this just happened. There have been months that have passed since the initial incident, the evidence, the collection, the processing, and now further questioning. What can the feds possibly do, since they're going to be relying on everything that was collected or not collected at the time?
Well, it sounds already like they may have more evidence available to them, but remember also the feds have a higher burden to meet. And it's interesting because we have Mark O'Mara with us, and that issue came up during the Zimmerman trial. The federal government can't simply say, hey, we think there's maybe a murder case. If they want to bring a civil rights case, they must additionally believe not only that foul play occurred, but further that it was motivated by a racial animus, by somebody who wanted to deprive this person of their civil rights based on their race. So that is a steeper hill to climb. So it will be interesting to see what the Department of Justice wants to do with this. They have a higher burden than, say, the local law enforcement does in simply bringing a murder case or even a homicide case.
So, Mark, jump in there if you would, because, you know, a lot of times these terms are thrown out, and for the average person out there, it's a little difficult to parse what it means. A civil rights case, a federal criminal case. What does this mean for the feds looking into this? What are their avenues?
If the feds say, yes, we're going to look into it, that's because they're looking and saying whatever happened to Kendrick happened in a way that violated his federal civil rights. What's interesting to me is if they, in fact, take a look at the case and say we're going to do an investigation, they're sort of presuming that at least the way the investigation was handled may well have violated Kendrick's civil rights. So it may have happened in how he was killed or how it happened that he passed, or it may have been in the way the investigation was or wasn't looked into properly. I agree with Danny what he's talking about. I'm just hoping that with the focus that we have on the case, that we take the opportunity to let the feds come in, take a look at it, and tell everyone once and for all what truly happened that day.
Oh, and I hope, along with everyone, that at least we could get to that level, of mystery solving. Mark O'Mara, great to have you here, particularly on this kind of a day.